What is up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan. I'm here with my co-host Dave Martinson. Dave, your guys Brockhampton. I mean, what a weekend for them.
Big weekend. Hell
Big
yeah,
weekend. We're going to be talking a lot of albums today. Lupe, Brockhampton, obviously I mentioned. Young Thug dropped an EP, which I don't know if we were expecting.
No.
Someone who did not drop an album, though. You got a Lil Wayne.
That's right. The Carter 5 did not show up. And as I said last week, I'm okay with that.
I am as well, because we have enough to talk about. We're going to be touching on some Netflix shows that dropped recently, and then finishing up with Dave trying to sell me on why I should or should not see some of the most recent movies that came out. Before we jump into it, though, please hit us up on Twitter at NowstalgiaPod, SoundCloud.com/NowstalgiaPod to find all the ways to listen to us, and subscribe on YouTube. Leave comments, ratings, and reviews on all of those. We appreciate all the feedback. Before we jump into some music, the first set photos and promotional videos came out about the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie. I just wanted to get your quick opinion. What did you think about what you've seen coming out of that movie so far?
Yeah, whatever. I'm down. You know, Jason Concepcion had a great tweet about this. He was like, releasing a Joker origin story the year after everyone's like, we like Wonder Woman. More of that is some real fingers on the pulse type shit. And I have to agree. As we said before, not a movie we were clamoring for, but I mean, I fucking respect the hell out of Joaquin. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. At least he will be.
Yeah, just from that promotional video where it has the face kind of flashing on him, and at the end he's wearing the paint. Interesting take on the paint. I obviously don't think that's how they're going to end up, having him look for most of the time. Probably a first time wearing the Joker face type thing. But to jump on Jason's tweet there for a minute, I mean, he made a great point about how one of the best things about the Joker was no one actually knows what his origin story is. It makes him a lot creepier that he just kind of shows up, and
it's kind of just been accepted that's what's the best,
right. And the thing about The Dark Knight was that even though that he gave a background story, he gave several different ones, and he made these little comments that lead to different trails of what might have actually happened, but no one actually knows. So Joker origin story in concept, maybe something we don't need, but if they're going to make it, looks like Joaquin might be the man for it. So definitely excited for it. I'm excited for a couple other movies coming out. Star Wars Born is in a couple weeks, as is Venom. But what were you going to say?
No, just not sharing anything new here, but they're making a Joker origin movie before they make a iteration of a Batman solo movie or a Superman 2. It's still kind of weird.
I mean, DC's in a weird place right now, with Cavill leaving. They don't really have a Batman at the moment. Do you think they're really going to move forward with Aquaman and Wonder Woman kind of leading the charge? Is that really who you build your team around?
Wonder Woman, sure, that makes plenty of sense. But Aquaman, I mean, yeah, I'm sure Aquaman will get a sequel, probably just because they actually have a star, right? But I don't know. It's just Ben Affleck. I doubt he ever returns. Even obviously he had some personal issues right now, but it always seemed like his interest was short-lived as it was. That Matt Reeves The Batman film very well never get made, no matter who stars in it.
Yep.
Yeah, Cavill is not officially gone, but it sounds like he's kind of gone. It's weird, but the next DC movie is Aquaman, then Shazam, then Wonder Woman 2, then Joker. That's through 2019. And after that, we have nothing really hard to bank on. So interesting.
Definitely interesting. I mean, I guess they're hoping that the Flash movie is a real hit and that they can build around them.
In theory, I like that one because they have John Francis Daly and his partner. They just worked on Spider-Man Homecoming, So I think that's a good group, obviously, because that one had I think Rick Famuyiwa, finally left that. There's a lot of issues going on with getting that one off the ground. But, if you lose Cavill, you lose Affleck, are you going to bother with an Ezra Miller Flash restart? There's a lot of hypotheticals right now. We don't have a lot of hard stuff to go on still.
Yeah, I think the one thing about Cavill leaving that I am excited about is There's talk that he might be the next Bond, and that might have been part of the reason why he left. How would you feel about Cavill being the next Bond?
I mean, yeah, he's like a studly British man. It makes sense, but I think he's too jacked for the role. You know, like Bond's like a secret agent, blends in, right? Cavill doesn't blend in. He's a fucking tank. You know, I don't know. Just personally, I think he's like too sculpted for the role.
James Bond does the worst job at blending in ever, dude. I mean, how many times does he show up to a thing and the bad guy immediately is like, "Oh, hello, James Bond." Like, I don't know if that's necessarily something he needs for sure.
Sure.
The only thing I think about Cavill is he's not as like debonair as Bond's supposed to be. Like,
I mean, I'm thinking of The Man from U.N.C.L.E., right?
Yeah.
Like he showed a lot in that, but I'd rather have Armie Hammer do it personally.
Oh, give Armie Hammer all the roles, man. I think anyone that's listened to our breakdown of last year's probably what our favorite movie, or at least consensus favorite movie. I'm blanking on the name. I know that you have it at the tip of your tongue.
What movie?
Timothy Chalamet, Armie Hammer.
Oh, Call Me by Your Name.
Yes, Call Me by Your Name. Jesus Christ.
Sorry to bother you.
Yeah. He's in that one too, but Call Me by Your Name, especially, I think people knew we laughed being big Army head. So I like that pick. We'll be talking more Bond in the future, especially since Cary Fukunaga.
Yep, Fukunaga.
Yeah, I'm saying his name weird in my head, but he'll be taking over the reins after Bond 25, correct? So
before Bond 25.
Before Bond 25. So
he's directing Bond 25 now after Stephen Daldry. Who left? Not Stephen Daldry. Whoever left the project. They only ended up delaying the movie a few months. So they're starting that up next year, but that's exciting. We'll talk about Fukunaga in a little bit.
Why don't we jump to some music, though? We'll start with your guy, Young Thug. Dropping this On the Run 6-song EP early this morning or late last night. I don't know when it happened exactly because I was sleeping. But waking up and seeing Young Thug listing Elton John as a feature on this shit, I just knew immediately. I was like, oh, this is going to be something. And I actually really enjoyed listening to this. And I'll admit, I'm not a huge Young Thug fan. I'm not super familiar with his discography, so I went in with low expectations of me enjoying this, and I really left feeling like this is just a fun project to listen to. Some really good features. I thought Jaden Smith was solid. Black I thought was solid as well. And then sampling Elton John, the last one, just like hooked me. So very, very, very pleased with this. What was your reaction to seeing it? And then how did you feel about the album in general, or the EP?
Yeah, so I believe it came out early this morning, or like right, at midnight or whatever. And we knew about that like Rocket Man remix of some kind that had been teased, but then it kind of been like acknowledged relatively recently. I never thought we'd get a studio version this soon, let alone all these new songs, because Thug just dropped Slime Language in what was it, fucking August, a compilation album, and he released what was it, Hear No Evil, another EP earlier this year, and he's always been a prolific guy, but I didn't expect this new EP. But I think this is my favorite Thug project in a long time, usually because he puts so much shit out. It's usually hit or miss for me. And even like Beautiful Thugger Girls, which was a project that was pretty well liked. I didn't like it as much because he was, as you could imagine, it's more R&B leaning. This one, I thought this one, this kind of reminded me of like some Barter 6 era Thug, where it was just him really sticking to what he's good at, rapping. And, when you listen to Thug, I feel like you kind of know what you're going to get, and you also have no idea what you're going to get. It really depends in terms of what he does on the mic. Like on Slime Language, a lot of people were talking about that song Audemars, where it's just like he's absurd with like his breath control and his cadences and all that kind of stuff, right? And when Thug is on, it can be really cool. And I think on this album, or this EP rather, he brings it. I think most of the songs are worth revisiting. So I was pleasantly surprised for an EP. I had no idea was coming.
Yeah, I think we both co-sign on. Definitely check this out. It's a fun little project. It's quick to listen to, and yeah, I mean, Young Thug keep popping out those songs, and making hits. Let's jump to somebody whose last album really wasn't much of a hit, Lupe Fiasco. I believe that when you reviewed this, you were not a big fan of Drogas Light.
Yeah, it was fine. You know, had its moments. Let me find that song. There was a song on there I actually really did dig, but it was pretty middling. I was more privy to his 2015 album Tetsuo and Youth. I actually really liked that one. And that's kind of, but you know, having Drogas Wave, this new album, come out, you know, a year and a half after an album, you know, it's pretty quick. I didn't expect that, and especially considering this is a long album, it's pretty dense too. But I also think it's pretty solid. It's a lot better than last year's. So I think this is another unexpected drop, you know, from a prolific, well-liked artist.
Were you privy to this Reddit thread that he started and was like updating about this album, like the past like year or so?
No. See, the thing with Lupe is that Lupe is like a really grating person these days. You know, like he just doesn't hold his tongue, doesn't give a fuck. That can help him sometimes. He speaks his mind. Other times he burns a lot of bridges. So I kind of just like don't pay attention to what he says these days, and I'll just listen when he puts out music. So yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, I had no idea about it either, but just kind of doing some background research. He apparently started this Reddit thread and was kind of going back and forth with some of the commenters in there and just kind of talking about his ideas for this album. It was kind of like a living, breathing like the thread of the concepts he wanted to talk about, which is kind of cool to then see them play out almost in like different ways in this. And I think the main one that people took away from it was he wanted to talk about the experience of a slave on a slave ship who decides to jump in the water rather than go and be a slave, which is basically what the first part of the album is centered around, is this idea. And then he talked about a lot of other really deep and I think really touching and powerful stories, you know, specifically Alan and what was the song, like Jolena or something like that? Joinla,
Alan Forever, and then John Love Forever.
Yeah, John, and those are stories about children who were either, one was a refugee who was found dead on a beach and no one really knows exactly what happened to them. Another one was a child who was killed in a drive-by shooting. And he talks about what their lives could have been, and you know, the tragedy of those losses. Then he also looks at his own introspection and his own come up, you know, in songs like Cripple and King Nas. So he had a lot of different concepts while also mixing in a lot of different sounds. What to you like stood out most about the summer? What did you like most about this album?
Yeah, that song I liked from last year, by the way, was called Jump. I was a big fan of that. It was kind of like a retro Lupe flow, just, you know, sounded like the Lupe of old. I really like that one. I believe it was on our playlist last year. But yeah, with this one, I think what was so impressive about it was that Lupe sounded like really clear, really confident on the mic. You know, I mean, he's always been a lyrical guy. He's always been a guy who prides himself on his bars. But on this album, it seemed like he like knew exactly what he was doing. It, like, you know, some of those albums like Food and Liquor 2 and especially Lasers, you know, kind of aimless projects. Didn't feel that way with this one. And my one reservation, look, when I was going in, I was like, hour and a half. Hour and a half. I mean, you better have 2 distinct sides like Drake, or you better have 3 short discs like Ray Shremmerd. There better not be no Culture 2 shit. I just don't want both. Right. And at times I felt that. Like, I know there's like a part 1, part 2 on this album, and I guess lyrically there is that divide, but I think because it sounds, for me, it kind of flowed. I didn't really notice the discs changes so much unless you're really, really listening for the lyrics and the storytelling. I feel like I noticed if I listened again. But yeah, I think it sounded really good overall.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, something we're going to talk about, I think, a little bit with Brockhampton is how a lot of their songs, they switch up style depending on the song, depending on what they're trying to achieve. Lupe did some similar stuff. You know, he brought in chords, he brought in strings and had some very interesting musical compositions. It's a very dense album, like you talked about. It's not only that this 25 track album where there's a lot of interludes, things like that, and there's a lot of songs to get through, but the songs that he does rap on and really goes into are very layered. And I think you'd have to listen to this album like 3 or 4 times to really catch most of what he's talking about. So it's not an easy listen.
Yeah, and a lot of those songs, a lot of like the good songs, like you're vibing to, then you look down like, fuck, this is a 6-minute song. You know? Like,
exactly.
A lot of that.
It's actually interesting too, because I Lupe is obviously the guy has a lot to say, and I think people know that he's just an established rapper and an excellent like wordsmith. He has a whole bunch of different flows. He's a very skilled technical rapper, but making hits hasn't always been his forte. But I do think there's some songs on here that really stand out. Like Stack the Cheese was a really fun song.
Cheese is great.
Stack the Cheese. Yeah. I was like, I left that song and I was like, that one's going on the playlist like immediately. I thought Alan Forever was also a pretty good song. I like Cripple and Wave Files, which is the song that's probably the most controversial one because it's about that slave like jumping in the water. But just the sound of it and even making it sound like an ocean sound was, I thought, really impressive and all really enjoyable. So I really think this is probably Lupe's most solid project in a couple of years, probably since his 5th album came out, the one that you liked before Waves Light.
Tetsuo and Youth had one of his best songs ever called Mural on there, and you kind of followed it up at the end of this album with Mural Jr. So I thought that was a cool little touch, little nod. One observation, I'm surprised I didn't think of this before, but Nicki Jean is to Lupe Fiasco what Skylar Grey is to Eminem. She's just always there, always singing on a Lupe song.
Yep.
And I'm like, don't know if you need to do this all the time, but it's not up to me.
Everybody, artists seem to have like their people a lot of the times. Like,
and she was on Stack That Cheese, so I can't hate too much.
If you want to stay up to date with all the songs that we like, as I mentioned, Nowstalgia Best of 2018 on Spotify. Definitely check that out. I think we have over 100 songs at this point, and we'll be updating with songs that we talk about today. All right, time to get into it. Brockhampton, Dave. I'm going to kind of give you the floor to set the stage for these guys, and then bring me in when you're ready to talk about Iridescence.
I'll have you sub in with the bench real quick. So we've talked about Brockhampton several times throughout the year. Specifically did a review on Saturation 3, their most recent album, but talked about that before that. I've talked about them since then. But we're just going to rehash a little bit of that. So if you've been listening, you're probably aware of this, so bear with me. But Brockhampton, the reason I think that I really latched on to them really fast and really started telling people and enthusiastically recommending them as a group was to that versatility you were alluding to earlier. I think Brockhampton, which is a 15 person rap collective, self-styled boy band, formed on the internet. Kevin Abstract, their pseudo frontman, basically solicited on the Kanye Titha forums about people wanting to make a band, and he got all these like-minded talents from all across the country. I think Kevin's from Texas, but people from all over the place, Connecticut, Europe, all over. Mm-hmm. They all moved to LA. They're renting a house together and started making music. And that's a cool story in that regard. But like, they've also had this really interesting path to getting to where we are now, just because Kevin, as a solo artist, started getting some buzz at the end of 2017 with his second album, American Boyfriend. Being a openly gay person in hip hop obviously is kind of noteworthy in and of itself. But I personally, it was a little too soft for me. I wasn't a big fan of it, but I could appreciate what he was doing on it. And then also of 2017, Brockhampton released their first official group project, All American Trash. It's a mixtape. Again, didn't like it too much, but there's some songs there I enjoyed, called Ben Carson, and you could see the potential, right? And then flash forward to when they started getting real attention, 2018, that Saturation trilogy, 3 LPs from June 2017 to December 2017. And, you know, they're just rabid fan base continue to grow exponentially. I think they really connected with young kids specifically, but because they're, you know, kind of a group of outcasts, a bunch of different kids, I mean, you know, they don't really fit in a box, right? Any of these dudes. And that was really appealing to a lot of kids, especially kids that are, you know, down in dumps, or even, you know, kids struggling with their sexuality, whatever it may be, right? It's a lot appealing about Brockhampton for young kids. And then people like me and you, more interested in them strictly for the you know, music. They continue to grow at this really crazy rate in terms of making this really well produced music that is, once again, like the members, hard to put in a box and hard to compare to much of anyone else in the rap game, right? And it's production is unique compared to the rest of the game. It's you know, verse structure, song structure, everything is so different and like unique to them, and they're just so like appealing in that regard. And it also happens that in addition to being versatile and unique and different, it's also really good usually, right? So all these appealing things bringing us to 2018, where they have some controversy. We talked about this. Amir Van, one of the founding members, sexual misconduct allegations, leaves the group.
Not only one of the founding members, but the face of their 3 albums,
Literally
Saturation.
The Saturation albums. He went to high school with Kevin, and they handled this clumsily. And I think you hear this on the album, which we're going to get to. And, you know, I mean, initially one of the lines that was thrown out there a lot that people were throwing back at them was Kevin basically said I didn't see an abuse, so maybe it didn't happen. Like, you know, like he said, like, I didn't see the abuser committing any abuse, so, you know, what do I know? And, you know, obviously we know that's a bad sentiment to have. And then Amir left the group. They said that he lied or misled them. So we don't really know. We know what their company line is, but in the meantime, you know, right before this happened, they signed RCA Records, $15 million record deal, right? Again,
crazy deal.
These kids that are not making super radio friendly music, you know, I mean, I think what we're really investing in, this kind of really shows what, you know, labels are interested in 2018. You're investing in the fans, right? You're investing in that ecosystem. And Saturation 3 did I think 36,000 first week in December, came in I think 15th that week. And I'm really interested to see how much bigger Iridescence does, because obviously they've continued to grow, and they've also, you know, grown within the game. I mean, like Pharrell has shown love to them. Obviously they're friends with peers like Jane Smith and Ansel Elgort, people like that. But it's been a really interesting story, especially like me and you. I mean, fuck, like we're at the much older end of like their fan spectrum, right? I guess we're just kind of coming at this as critics, but a lot going into this album. And, you know, now that they've released this album, which went through 3 name changes, finally sell on Iridescence, right? Who knows how many iterations of this album there are, because they re-recorded a bunch of it, obviously, as things went down. You know, how many Amir songs are just on hard drives now that we're never going to hear, right? Who knows?
Right.
But they had a rough summer. Go Google what happened at Boston Calling. They were, you know, crying on stage. They were having a hard time. Again, they're young dudes, and we got this album, and it's definitely different, but I still think it's pretty good. But what did you think, as someone who even came into the group more recently than I did?
Yeah, you know, I think one of the things doing a podcast together and having, I think, very different music tastes. We definitely, our Venn diagram, the middle part isn't as big as anyone that listens to the show knows. And you've made attempts to listen to albums I want you to listen to, I want to talk about. I do the same for you. And Brockhampton was something I promised you this year I was going to catch up. And I kept putting it off. Then Iridescence is coming out, and I'm like, all right, I got to do this. So like literally Friday night, I like put the earbuds in, I was listening. And I was pretty blown away. I started with All American Trash, but I listened to a couple. I think that actually was something that was a hindrance to me getting to Saturation, because I didn't love that project, and I was like, if it's all gonna be like this, it's gonna be a bit of a slog. But then getting through Saturation, especially, I mean, there's some really great songs of Saturation. I think the beginning, Heat into Gold, is just like, I mean, what a fucking like an announcement of like what this band can be and who they are. But I really enjoyed the second half and just how it became very like breezy and very melodic and fun to just kind of like vibe to. And then Saturation 2, I didn't like as much, but I thought there were some, I mean, Junkie, Kevin Abstract's verse on that is fantastic. And then like the funkiness of Sweet, I was like, this song is a fucking banger. And then I got to Saturation 3 and it starts off with Boogie and I was like, oh shit. Like they were coming so hard on that. I also really liked Alaska. So I found so many different things and they were so versatile. And they really captured, I think, this I want to say duality, but it's almost like a triality where they have this very melodic kind of like serious boy band vibe to some of their songs. Then they have this very hard rap vibe. And then there's an in-between where they try on this like almost Punjabi MC type sound that just makes them so fun to listen to. And it's always like, what are you going to get? I was interested also to see with all the stuff that happened with Amir, what was going to come out of this album. I had stayed a little bit more up to date with where the band was at and how they were handling all the controversy. And I saw that there were some ups and downs with it, but I think they landed the ship. And I think Iridescence it's probably not their best album, but I think it's a very, very solid album. And probably my second favorite out of the four, honestly.
Yeah, I think critically, it's incredibly commendable for a multitude of reasons. But I think because it's an album that is, I don't want to say lower energy. That sounds too negative. But I guess it's just it's like more. It's like intentionally like a banger reverse, right? Mm-hmm. Like the Saturation trilogy. Part of that identity is that that's just some fucking ignorant music, but not ignorant in like a traditional sense for rap, right?
Right.
And like there's no gummy on Iridescence. There's no gold on Iridescence, right? The closest thing you probably get is first song New Orleans or like Jouvert, I think. Those are the closest things I could think of to like Saturation era, but also they're also pretty different. And also this is an album that is them, they've had a long year. It's at times sadder. It's incredibly introspective. Not that before you referenced Junkie. Kevin's verse on that's well documented, but not the same thing. They've dabbled in that, but I think a lot of them, I think almost the whole group, they all were very self-reflective on Iridescence. So that can make it maybe not as fun to revisit depending on your mood, but I think the album, is still really great. So you can kind of dock. It's just different for those reasons.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think that difference is necessarily a bad thing. They're also at this point where, I mean, this is their Fame album, I guess you can say. So a lot of reviews are saying that. It makes sense. I mean, they're
record.
They're trying to reconcile this getting this huge accomplishment as a group. I mean, 15 million, that's $1 million for every single person in the group, which I mean, for them is completely life-changing, while also having this member of their band who is a pretty, important member and close with the leader of the band. I mean, they, like I said, they grew up together, going through this controversy and making sense of what this means for them. I think they do a really good job of creating songs that they are lower energy than their other bangers or hits, but like San Marcos, I mean, that is going to be sung at festivals. That was made for festivals pretty much. Like I can just see crowds just singing that, like that ending, where they're just singing together. I want more to this life than this. I don't know. I also felt like Honey was a really enjoyable song, one that really stood out to me. Wait, I think Kevin Abstract, that's like his Junkie verse for this album.
No doubt.
And also Tanya, I thought was a really interesting look at and a really interesting concept to use the movies, I guess, like Rise or
right. And it's interesting because leading up to this, they released 3 Lucys that weren't on this album, right? 1999 Wildfire was our favorite one, right? The very Outcast adjacent song, right? Then Tanya followed up pretty soon after, and I was like, I don't know if I'm digging this one. But in the flow of Iridescence, you know, I was like, fuck, yeah, this is great. I actually really like this song. It's one of my favorite songs on the album. You know, I think if there's there's a negative to this, and again, this is not this because Brockhampton has so many members, because they dabble in so many sounds, it's really hard for the music they make right now to be cohesive in the flow of an album. I mean, because it jumps around so much, it can almost be disruptive if those songs don't totally vibe or work for the listener. I think Amir's departure opened up a lot of real estate for other members of the group to continue to grow. I think Joba is a big winner from this. He really shows out. I mean, I really was starting to like vibe with him, like on Boogie, right? Boogie like steals the show at the end of that song. I went, all right, there's more going on with Joba, because remember how Saturation starts. Joba, Matt, Merlin, those dudes are they're like bit players. Like they'll come in, they'll do cool stuff, but it was really Kevin, Amir, and Dom dominating most of the songs in terms of having like full-fledged verses, right, and doing lots of the hooks, right? But on this, with Amir gone, they've had to change, and I think that's almost all positive. The only negative I would say is I think there's a little too much Bareface on this. Bareface is the he started out behind the scenes for them, but he's the one who does like the really open singing, right? Like it's sounds like nothing else that any of the other guys do. I think it doesn't work so much in some of my songs, like Thug Life, for example. Well, I thought the mix was really cool, the way they transitioned from New Orleans to Thug Life. Yeah. I don't like him sometimes, but on San Marcos, he's really good. So he's a little hit or miss for me. But other than that, I thought everyone else took advantage of the opportunity to have more, room with Amir gone.
It's actually interesting. Joba, when he's really going in, almost kind of loses me with like how screamy it gets. But I think the way he's able to like go from being so screamy to also being incredibly melodic at points is really interesting. And I think I would agree he gets a lot of time on this to grow it and to experiment and explore like what his style is and what works for him. What was your favorite song off the album? I was interested in this.
I've been going to New Orleans the most just because that's a little track. It's like Saturation. It's just, it's the closest thing to a banger, right? So I like that one a lot. But I think Wait, obviously the Kevin verse is really important. I think Jouvert is really cool. I think that's, again, speaks to when Joe was on and like really hitting his stride. It's on a song like that. Tanya, a slower song, but I really dig that one. And then it was unfortunately it's only like 2 minutes long, but I thought Where the Cash At was really fun with Merlin and Matt. Reminded me a lot of Queer on Saturation 2 in the beginning. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to like all of their songs. I never have. That's because they make all different kinds of songs, but I can always appreciate what they're trying to do because they're doing a million things at once, So,
absolutely.
Still incredibly pleased with the project, as it seems everyone is.
Yeah, it's gotten really good reviews so far. I think just in general, people like not only what they're trying to do, but their execution is usually pretty close to good on almost everything, if not good or great. So hot band. Before we move on, I wanted to ask, where does this album rank with the Saturation trilogy for you?
Good question. I, like you, have Saturation 2 at the bottom of the trilogy. Despite the fact that there are Saturation 2 songs I love. I think Sweet at the moment's my favorite Brockhampton song. Obviously, that's something that's changed 30 times, but I think I have Sat bottom. It's early to tell. I had Saturation 1 on my top 10 albums of 2017. And this, I'm sure, will be certainly close for my 2018 list, but I don't know. I think I still have Saturation 1, 3 ahead of this right now, but it could change. It could change for sure. Early to say.
Yeah, I think it'll probably depend on the mood that you're in any given day moving forward. You definitely check that out, and like I said, we'll have probably 1 or 2 songs from Brockhampton on our best of playlist. We're gonna jump to some TV before we wrap up with some movie talk. Maniac. Jonah Hill, Emma Stone, Justin Theroux. what are your initial thoughts on? We're only going to be talking about the first episode of all these shows. What's your take on episode 1 of Maniac?
The pattern is the pattern. Is that the line? Is that what he sees in the bathroom?
Something like that. He's going to be the savior of the world. So,
I'm fucking in, dude. This reminds me a lot of Legion, a show whose first season we fucking loved. You know, in second season I could still appreciate for what it was doing. I think it's cool because it wasn't like intentionally misleading us with the surreal nature of the show. You know, like yes, Jonah Hill's character Owen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, even though Owen has problems keeping track of reality, us ever don't have that same problem. You know, it's not with Mr. Robot. I had you appreciate it for that. Jonah Hill and Emma Stone are giving, I think, specific performances, which I'm curious to see continue to play out. Obviously, this is the first time back on screen since Superbad back in 2007. It's been a minute. I think Cary Fukunaga actually put something out again. You know, it's been a while since Beast of No Nation. He's attached to it, left it, attached to the Alienist, left Alienist. Now he's attached to Bond. Please don't leave. You know, and of course he blew up from True Detective season 1, right? Of course, the whole thing. So it's return to TV, but again, return to the screen in general. And he's a showrunner. Patrick Somerville cut his teeth in the Leftovers writing room, and as if you remember back when Netflix announced this, they announced Fukunaga, Stone, Jonah Hill. And then 7 months later, they told us, "Oh yeah, it's being run by Patrick Somerville." Sorry, we forgot to mention that, right? But I do think it's a really cool union, and I've read some pieces about how they've collaborated and worked together. Apparently, they threw out a ton of scripts right before they went to production, and because they just kind of like, they butt head work. It seems like it was a really cool creative process, and then you combine that with a show that's seems to be quite creative and quite out there. So I'm really excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I think Hill and Stone have a lot of chemistry. Obviously, first time you see them is Superbad, but I really like the role Jonah Hill gets to play in this. You know, he's skinny Jonah Hill right now, which is really great to see. Getting to do some more dramatic acting, and you know, when you even think about him as a dramatic actor in something like Wolf of Wall Street. He never really gets to be like, I feel like the serious actor. He always is kind of like providing some sort of comic relief, but this seems, I mean, at least from what we saw in the first episode, I feel like there weren't a lot of moments of levity. It was pretty heavy, a lot of it. Also, someone that I'm really interested to see how they play her into this is Jemima Kirk, who plays Jessa on Girls. But she, for some reason, whenever she's on the screen, I can't like take my eyes off her. I feel like she's just a really stunning actress. And it seems like there's some sort of romance kindling there. It's hard to, I guess, tell how real that is or isn't with Jonah Hill's mind state. But with the relationship that I'm almost sure is going to bud between Hill and Stone, and then whatever Jemima Kirk's character ends up doing, I think that could be really interesting. Also, from all the previews, Justin Theroux looks like he gets to kind of show out in this and be super weird, which I'm down with weird Justin Theroux. You know, I love him in The Leftovers. I think he's an underutilized actor. He should have gotten a bigger role in Star Wars The Last Jedi, but only so much you can do with as the code breaker, I guess. But yeah, no, I'm in on this show. I'm excited to see where it goes. Why don't we jump to American Vandal? Did you ever watch season 1?
I have since watched it. We did not talk about it that much because I watched it this year. I didn't watch it last year when it came out. So
I can't remember if it was on my best of 2017 list, but I definitely mentioned it at least as a honorable mention for the list. It really was a surprise hit for Netflix, where it was a mockumentary style of like Serial and all these crime documentaries looking at who drew the penises on the cars in season 1. Season 2 is looking at the turd burglar,
the brownout baby.
And all those videos of like the kids during the brownout are like ridiculous.
They were not holding anything back. I was
No.
like, fuck, hell yeah.
So what do you think of the first beginning of American Vandal season 2?
Yeah, well, I think what made season 1 so great is, as you said, it's treats itself so serious that as a result, right?
Mm-hmm.
Documentary and the kids, they're just the way they're going about it is so fun to watch. And then the show like really levels up in episode 5 when American Vandal gets posted on Vimeo in the show's world, right, and becomes a real thing, right? And the show just becomes even better, levels up, right? Mm-hmm. This one, doubling down again at the start of season 2, it's even more meta, right? Like they go on Trevor Noah, right? They get like contracted out to solve this new mystery at this other school. So I just find it so cool that they keep continuing to do that, because the way season 1 ended really impressed me. There are multiple for them to kind of just, play into the cliche, lean in, kind of get out real quick, with what's her name? Krista Carlisle, right? Like they didn't just go out and expose someone else, right? They kind of like turned away from these obvious ways to end the show. And on this one, how do they do in the first one? They have a guy admit to being the criminal in the first episode. Again, a different tact. So I'm just really excited to see, because these guys behind the show, they know what they're doing, and they're making like obviously they're making commentary on the way social media functions with young people and all of that, but they're not just playing the hits again. I think they're already starting to twist it. I just find them really their grasp of what they're actually making fun of is really impressive to me. So I just I'm excited to see what's going to go down, because it's not going to be predictable.
No, not at all. And it was actually interesting when they announced season 2. I think people were like, how are they going to do this? Is it going to be revisiting the same story, same school? I think to frame it the way that they did, to make it an anthology type series where they're just going to be going to these different schools and looking at these ridiculous like crimes that go on at the schools is so funny. I think I'm a little further ahead in the season than you are, and it does not disappoint. It's a real pleasure to watch. It's funny, and I definitely recommend it. I also wanted to talk quick. I don't think this is a show that you've gotten to yet. BoJack Horseman season 5 dropped, I think 2 weeks ago. I got through the first episode, and I just wanted to comment that BoJack is probably the smartest cartoon out there, even though we've talked about how the cartoon is just like a vehicle for the show, and it's really this like introspection into what life, like all these dark, like deeper issues of life, and what it means to be a celebrity, what it means to be a broken creature, human being, however you want to frame it with the show. Just to kind of touch on a couple of the things that this show has talked about over the last couple seasons. They have an asexual character, which was the first time that's been portrayed on TV. They're looking at substance abuse. They're looking at depression, Alzheimer's. They had a great episode last season where they did it from BoJack's mom's perspective, when she's dealing with Alzheimer's, and kind of what she sees and how that might be for someone dealing with that. As well as just like relationships in a really interesting way, stardom in an interesting way. They do a lot of really great things with the show. Also, another reason to watch, if you listen to us, you know that we love Rami Malek, and he's a voice character on this season for the director for BoJack's new show. So he's pretty good too. So definitely check this show out. Episode 1's great. I'm looking forward to getting in deeper into it. So we'll be talking about it if you ever get a chance to catch up. I know that your list of TV shows is pretty long at this point, as all of ours are.
Indeed.
All right, Dave. Predator, Assassination Nation. Convince me why I should or should not see these movies.
Well, don't go on Rotten Tomatoes. First comment. Predator is getting relatively panned, but most people that see the movie will tell you that the movie is flat out absurd. It's the most ridiculous thing I've seen in a fucking while. It's at the same time really funny and really fucking entertaining, and just a damn good watch. So I was having a great time half the time. Well, every time I'm not shaking my head, I'm laughing my ass off. So it was surprisingly still good considering the critical panning. Shane Black, a director who, when he's on, can really impress you with snappy dialogue and the way he manipulates characters. Obviously, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Iron Man 3, even The Nice Guys most recently, right?
Yeah.
We know what Shane Black brings to the table, and usually he can do well. Now, this movie, they say that they reshot a lot of the third act, which I think I can tell, but it's just hilarious watching Jacob Tremblay, obviously kid actor, we know him from The Room. Jacob Tremblay kind of like drives the whole movie because he's able to interface with the Predator technology. And he's the son of Boyd Holbrook, right? Boyd Holbrook is our pseudo lead basically, and Boyd Holbrook not as jacked as Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think that's a cold take, right?
Not many people are.
Correct. But they don't play into that. They don't treat him like he's just Arnold from 1987, right? So I think that they handle that well. And then Olivia Munn's in this, and I actually think she does a really good job. She has some of the best comedy bits. Sterling K. Brown is the best part of the movie. He's great as an antagonist. And then like Keegan Michael Key is here. Theon Greyjoy from Game of Thrones is here. Thomas Jane is here. It's quite the impressive ensemble. And Black and Trevante Rhodes from Moonlight. It's quite the ensemble. They and Black gives each of them I feel like just enough to make an impression in the script. Again, there's narrative loopholes. There's convoluted stuff with the plot. You don't have to. You shouldn't think about that when you're watching this. You're just watching funny dialogue and ridiculous over the top action. And that's something you're into. If those are what you set your expectations at, I think the movie delivers.
This sounds like a really good movie to watch on like a hungover Sunday or when I have like nothing going on, like Saturday morning, like just mindless, like gonna be enjoyable. Kind of like the Fast and the Furious movies, probably worse than those, but just kind of like, this is a fun thing to put on.
For sure. Yeah.
All right. So Assassination Nation. Do you like this one more?
I like it more. Assassination Nation had higher expectations, I think, for everyone going in. This was a Sundance film purchased by Neon. And you look at the poster, promotional posters for this, they're, it's Heathers meets the Purge, right? And it's like this quartet of girls, high school girls. And basically the premise is that this unknown hacker starts just like doxing people and exposing all of their internet history. Starts with the mayor and a principal. Then it's half the kids in school. And it just shows how, in the movies, about how like society in this small town, Salem, it's a play on the Salem witch trials, just kind of like descends into madness. As, people who's cheating on who was back, all talking, you can imagine all shit's exposed, people's court histories, whatever, right? So it devolves into that. But what's really cool about the movie is that I think the visual palette's great. It's pretty to watch. There's really cool stuff with the camera framing because there's the four leads, right? The four girls, and there's a lot of moments when they have all four of them on the screen, and it's like vertical planes bisecting the shot. Bella Thorne isn't actually in; she's a side character, but she's this really cool scene with an American flag. I won't spoil what happens, but that was really cool. And just watching, my only reservation is that the movie is just like gets almost too ridiculous, but at the same point, again, it's I think it's really engaging, and like it's obviously the play on what's going on in quote 2018, right? And satirizing that. And I think it might not quite have as strong a message as it presents itself as having, but what it does do well, which I think is just kind of being an engaging story, and being kind of entertaining watching these high school girls talk shit and kick ass later, will work for me. So this is something I'd recommend people see in the theaters if they can, just because I think it'll work. You'll have a good time watching it, but also it had a really bad weekend at the box office. It made only like $1 million in 1,400 theaters. So that's like $733 per theater. Very bad average. So I'd say support this movie if you can, or at least rent it later. because I think even though it doesn't totally work, I think it's definitely worth watching for what it does do right.
From the way you described it, it kind of reminded me of Kick-Ass a little bit.
Sure. The violence is akin to Kick-Ass, sure.
Okay. And just kind of like the overall vibe, like the colors and things like that. And the way it seems to be shot. I mean, obviously I haven't seen it, so I don't know if that fits. It sounds like something I'll definitely check out eventually. Probably will wait till it's like probably be on HBO or something like that, streaming eventually. So I'll probably catch it then. But yeah, it sounds like these are two movies that you have to kind of go in knowing what you're going to get. If you go in thinking this is going to be like, I don't know, Oscar bait or something, you're going to be sorely mistaken.
Right. Yeah. And I think like Predator is like, it's like an amazing B movie, right?
Right.
Awesome for that. And then Assassination Nation is just like, this is a film that really shoots its shot.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that can probably be jarring for some people, right? May turn them off. Like there's a distinct tonal shift in the middle of the movie. And that was where I was thinking, I was like, is this working for me still? And I keep watching. I'm like, yeah, it's still working. I'm having a good time. It's
all...
you just have to frame your reference point, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we're probably going to wrap up there. Any last thoughts for the people this week?
Big week for us next week. Kanye.
That's not happening, dog.
Yandi. He's the first guest of the new season of SNL. Sounds like a commitment. But yeah, I don't believe it's actually happening until it happens. I don't believe that's the name until it happens. But what I really hope is the case is that it has the album cover like Jesus, because that shit got me hyped.
Yo, real quick question for you. Did you see or listen to his like Instagram videos aimed at like Drake and Nick Cannon?
Oh, I watched all of them.
Man,
he was spitting.
I mean, the moment when he had to wait for the train to go by, for some reason that was just like I was dying laughing. Like, hold on, there's the train coming. And like just waiting. I was like, just redo the video. Like, I know you're in the middle of this rant, but just like, be like, all right, I'm starting over.
No, that was funny.
Just so ridiculous.
When he started talking about Travis, this is hell yeah, man.
I mean, I hope he drops music. I'll be surprised if he does. But is this going to be Good Ass Job? Is that
no? Good Ass Job is the name of his collaborative Chance project.
With Chance, right?
And of course, Good Ass Job, the lineage, that was the first Lost Kanye album. Remember, the kid is a college dropout, then he late registration, then he graduates, then he gets a good ass job, right? That was the thing. I think Good Ass Job fell by the wayside while he made 808s and Heartbreaks, then off to Dark Twisted Fantasy. We know the story. So even though obviously this is unlikely to be actually what thematically Good Ass Job might have been back in the 2000s, but at least keeping the title around, I think it's fucking dope.
I don't know, man. Chance was all about keeping waves because he felt like it really fit that college dropout, late registration feel. More late registration, I guess. So, I mean, if he can pull old school Kanye out of this, that would be, I mean, a huge win for 2018.
And we know it's in there because Reborn of Kids See Ghosts, Kanye's verse was, that's a vintage Ye verse.
Yes, absolutely.
So we know it's still in there. I think Chance, he really loves Chance. Chance has stood by Kanye through all of his well-earned, negativity recently. So Ebro predicted this weeks ago. He's like, Kanye's going to go on the apology tour. He's going to start going back to Chicago.
Yep.
Yada. Like he posted a picture. He was hanging out with G Herbo the other day. Another Chicago artist. He's hanging out with GLC and Consequence. Like he's closing out all his beefs. He's paying all his debts, and hey, whether it's authentic or not, it's better for all of us. So let's hope the album actually is like that. It's probably going to be not like Ye. I think it's a safe take.
I think that is a safe take. I'm actually even more excited for than Kanye, though. This Kendrick and Anderson .Paak project that's supposed to be dropping in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just a project or just a collab, but yeah, October 4th.
Whatever it is, Bubbling, I think, is one of the hottest songs of the year that gets overlooked. I want Anderson .Paak to drop a second a third, fourth project at this point for him. So.
He said that album Oxnard is done. Dr. Dre
hell yeah
finished mixing it, so that's ready. Now, whether October 4th is just the date Oxnard comes out and the Kendrick song's on that, who knows? Or maybe he's really slow playing this, and that's when a new single Kendrick comes out. We'll find out soon, but yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah, dude. I mean, we're finishing out September, then we're really hitting like the Oscar run for movies.
Now it's movie time.
Yep. Now it's movie time. We have a lot of TV to catch up on. And
Insecure next week, season 3. Logic, Young Sinatra 4 tape. Again, back to actually rapping, doing like this great technical ability, his first strengths that he attracted fans with. Excited as hell for that. He has a song on Young Sinatra 4 called Wu-Tang Forever, with literally all 9 members of Wu-Tang, including Master Killa and Capadonna. Like, it's exciting.
Yeah, insane. So a lot to be listening to, a lot to be dissecting. We'll be talking about it all on Nowstalgia. So hit that subscribe button. Go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod. Share us with friends and family, especially on Twitter at nostalgiapod. Interact with us. Share our tweets.
Oh yeah,
we were live tweeting the Emmys and had some pretty good ones. So definitely give us a follow and a share. And yeah, we appreciate you. We love you. Peace out.